Hello and welcome to the Author Webinar Series, brought to you by the Nonfiction Authors Association and Writers Conference. Since 2010, we have helped thousands of writers learn to write, publish, and promote books that make a difference in the world. If you are seeking guidance for your own author journey and want to reach your goals faster, you can learn about membership benefits, courses, and additional resources by visiting nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. We look forward to connecting with you and hope you enjoy this webinar.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a webinar for the Nonfiction Authors Association community. Today, we're talking about how to choose your publishing path. And you're going to learn about your options between traditional publishing, hybrid publishing, and self-publishing. We have a lot of content to cover. If you're new to us, I am Stephanie Chandler, CEO of the Nonfiction Authors Association. I have walked in all of your shoes. I am self-published, traditionally published. I have done it all. I actually used to own a bookstore. I'm a former Silicon Valley employee. So lots of experiences, and I'm very passionate about helping nonfiction authors be successful because we're the ones writing books that really make a big difference in the world. So I'm excited to show you what your options are. Let's do this. Here we go. So you have three primary choices: traditional publishing, self-publishing, and hybrid. I'm going to take you through all the steps for each of them. First, let's talk about pros and cons. And by the way, for those of you attending live, if you have a question, pop it in the Q&A. I am going to take your questions at the end of it, at the end of the lecture. And I'm also going to share the slides. So you can take your phone out and grab screenshots if you want, but the slides will be shared along with the recording. So pros of traditional publishing: getting a book deal. Typically, you get some sort of book advance, right? They pay you a fee to acquire the rights to publish your book. Traditional publishing still has great credibility with a lot of places. Media likes traditionally published books. Bookstore distribution has always been one of the primary reasons authors want to be traditionally published, but I would just want to point out bookstores aren't necessarily where we're buying most of our books today. And I say this with a heavy heart. And as a former bookstore owner, bookstores are really struggling. And nobody knows for sure, but we believe somewhere around 70% of all book sales are happening through Amazon. So brick and mortar stores aren't as shiny and exciting as they once were. And traditional publishers typically offer some marketing support, but not as much as you'd like to think. So some of the downsides: low earnings. Did you know that the average traditionally published book, you will earn about $1 per copy? The publisher's earning the bulk of the profits. You give up all your rights. They can change your title. They can remove chapters out of your book. They can reorganize your content. They can give you a book cover you don't like. So you lose all control over your own work. And for a lot of writers, that is really frustrating. I have been in those shoes. I had a publisher call me and say, "We want you to remove a chapter from your book. We don't care which one. We're trying to cut costs." That is incredibly frustrating. And that was the last time I traditionally published. I said I was never going to let that happen again. It often takes a long time for a traditional publisher to get to market. So if you sign a deal in December, chances are your book won't be out until next December, maybe even January. It generally takes around a year. And then the marketing. I think a lot of authors want to seek a traditional book deal because you're hoping that they're going to take over all the marketing. But the fact is, they still want the authors to do the bulk of the marketing. Traditional publishing, because it's changed so much and it's harder for them to make profits, they're investing their marketing dollars in their tried and true authors, unfortunately. So as a new author, you still have to work to prove yourself. They want to see that you are actively marketing your book. Some pros of self-publishing: maintaining full control. For me, as a type A control freak, I really want control of my content. So to me, that's super important. It may not be as important to you. It is certainly easier than ever to self-publish. There are a lot of steps, but it's very accessible. You can get your book to market right away. So you don't have to wait a year. You can literally have your book to market in a week if you want to. You will definitely earn more per copy on a self-published book. And there are lots of ways you can get it done today. Some of the downsides, there is definitely an upfront investment. It is not inexpensive to publish a book, and we're going to talk about that. And DIY, a lot of authors are electing to do their own publishing, and that's fantastic. Just know there's a lot of steps. I'm going to take you through them. You probably won't see your book in bookstores. Not that it can't happen, but it's unlikely. And let me say that's okay, because that's not really where most of us are buying our books. Traditional media still doesn't love self-published books, but if you're trying to get reviewed in People magazine or the newspaper, you have so much competition anyway that chances of you getting reviewed are really slim. And some stigma still remains, although it's gotten so much better. If you have your self-published book professionally produced, that overrides a lot of some of that negative viewpoint that people have had in the past. So just to really emphasize this point about bookstores is, let's say you do get into bookstores. Let's say you get with a publisher, they get your book into the stores. What happens is if the book doesn't sell within 30 to 60 days, the bookstores send them back and for a full refund. And they come back in any kind of condition, ripped, tattered, bent, and the publisher has to issue a full refund. So whether you do this with your traditional publisher or as a self-published author, you get a distributor to get you into bookstores. If you're not creating that demand and the books aren't moving, it can be a really expensive lesson to learn. The other thing about book distributors is they take a huge percentage of the profit. So generally, they're going to take 65 to 75% off your cover price. So if your cover price is $20, they're going to pay you $5 for that book. So you have to hope your print cost is below that, your shipping, all of that's built in. But it is possible for self-published authors to get distribution, and there is also specialty distributors that sell to Christian bookstores, sports stores, the airport bookstores. We do maintain a list of book distributors on our site if you want to check that out. But book distribution is expensive, and I think personally there's a lot of better ways to do it. Now, hybrid publishing, you've probably been hearing this term. Maybe you're not even sure what it is. Hybrid publishing is really a service provider that you hire to produce your book for you. And what distinguishes hybrid publishing from vanity publishing is that hybrid publishers vet their manuscripts. They don't publish anything in exchange for a check. They need to see your manuscript. They need to decide that they want to work with your book. And this is good news because you want your book to be in good company if you're going to hire a service provider. A company, a publishing service provider that's not vetting manuscripts, that will publish anything in exchange for a check, is generally known as a vanity press. And there are some unscrupulous ones out there. There are some that are perfectly legitimate, but they are not going to have the same level of quality control as a hybrid publisher. So some of the pros, they're going to do all that heavy lifting. The long checklist of things that I'm going to show you when you self-publish your book get handled by your hybrid publisher. They should have lots of industry experience. They should care about producing a high quality book, and you should always retain the rights to your work if you're paying for the service. The downside is an upfront investment. You're going to spend a lot, and these rates have gone up, as has inflation, right? So we're seeing trends between $10,000 to $50,000, $60,000 for hybrid publishing services. It is expensive. And you just have to be aware of those vanity presses. I'm going to tell you how to distinguish them, and also contract terms. You don't want to get locked in to a long-term contract with a hybrid publisher If you're paying for a service, that service should be cancelable. So that is one red flag to look for. If they want to lock you into a contract for 2 years and Random House calls and wants to acquire the rights to your book, you're stuck. You can't accept their offer. So beware of those long contract terms. That is a big thing. So beware of these vanity presses, just the lack of quality control. A lot of times, if they're setting the pricing on the books and you're not getting a say in it, they're taking advantage of the authors. They're overpricing the book, they're shrinking your profit margin and those long-term contracts. So do your research. I'm going to show you how in a few minutes here. So let's go through the steps for each of these. We're going to go through the steps for traditional publishing, self-publishing, and what to look for hybrid publishing. So if you want to get traditionally published, you're going to research agents and small and mid-sized presses. We send out what's called a query letter. That's the initial contact with the agent or the editor that pitches them your book. And if they're interested, they ask for a book proposal and sample chapters. And it's a slow process. It's a numbers game. You certainly need to send out lots of pitches. But if you really want to accomplish this, these are the steps to do so. Now, why would you want to work with a literary agent? Well, they are the only ones who can reach the big five publishers. So if you're trying to pitch Random House, you can't do that on your own. Only agents are accepted for submissions there. But really, agents bring a lot of value. They understand what contract terms that are negotiable. They have that experience. And I will tell you, these publishing contracts are like 20 to 30 pages and incredibly overwhelming. So they know how to negotiate potentially bigger advances. They're going to have your back. They're going to tell you what's a good deal, what's not a good deal. And then they are getting a percentage of your earnings. There are also small and mid-sized publishers that you can pitch directly yourself. Especially think about niche publishers and small to mid-sized presses that have specialty areas. They often accept direct pitches from authors. They want them, and they list their submission guidelines on their websites. And they're also working with much smaller budgets. So they may be more invested in your success. They may actually do more marketing than the bigger publishing houses. So if you're going to send out a query letter, this is the structure. No pleasantries, no how are you doing? And you just want to launch right in to your book pitch. You're going to deliver it short and concise. You're going to list comparable titles. What other books are similar to yours and how is your book different? Why are you the person to write this book? And especially agents and editors care about platform, meaning the size of your audience. So hopefully you have some level of social media following, you have website visitors, maybe you have a good size email list. And if you don't yet have those things and you really want to get traditionally published, work on them because that will help you get a traditional book deal. They love to see authors with a platform. It is a lot harder to get a book deal without a platform, with the exception of some of those small and mid-sized presses, oftentimes with niche books, maybe holistic health books or spiritual books, they might be a little more lenient about platform. And certainly if you've met this agent or editor previously at a conference or something, it's certainly worth mentioning that. So you're going to send out your query letters. And then hopefully what happens is these folks come back to you and say, I'm interested, send me a proposal. So what goes in your book proposal? You're going to do an overview of what your book is about and a market analysis. Who is the target audience for your book? How big is that audience? Is it the homeschooling audience? Is it women between the ages of 50 and 60? You want to get really clear about who is the target market, what is the size and opportunity in that market. And then they want to see your competitive titles, generally 3 to 5 books that would be comparable to yours, hopefully not exactly like yours. Your book needs to be different, but they need to see those to help them understand what your book is about. You don't want to say there's no other book like mine. because that actually can be a red flag. They can say, then, is there even a market for this book? So you need something that's at least loosely related or similar to the book you're writing. And they want to see your marketing plan. And this is all about your current platform, your numbers. How many people are you reaching through your social media, your email, as a speaker? Maybe you write a column. All of these things count. And then what are your plans for your launch? Are you going to access leverage beta readers? They want to see a detailed marketing plan that shows them how you are going to actively participate in promoting that book. And then generally they want to see at least 2 or 3 sample chapters, and that's for prescriptive nonfiction. For those of you writing narrative, memoir, they may want to see the whole manuscript. With memoir in particular, any kind of narrative nonfiction, it really comes down to the quality of the writing. So before you even start pitching, you want to make sure your work is ready for prime time. You want to make sure you've worked with experienced editors to help you make your manuscript the best it can be before you start pitching, because you get one shot and we don't want to miss that one shot. But for those of you writing prescriptive nonfiction, you don't even necessarily have to have the whole manuscript complete. But you do need at least 3 sample chapters and an outline to show them. And part of the negotiation with your contract will be how long you have to complete the written work. So I just said that agents want to see the complete manuscript for narrative nonfiction. They want to see your table of contents. They want to know that there is something special and unique about your book. Okay, so very important. You're not writing what's already been said. You are doing something differently based on your own experience, whatever credentials you have, those types of things. And they want to see edited writing. We all have the ability to hire editors today, or barter, or work together. Our Nonfiction Authors Association community, now we're launching critique groups where you can help support each other. So they want to see that it's been edited. Now, these smaller presses are definitely going to be more open if you have a small platform, if you're just getting going on that, and niche books. So maybe you write books about nursing. Maybe you write books about students and how to parent teenagers. So any kind of niche topic, you will probably have a better shot with a small or mid-size press. So those contracts, like I said, they're massive. They're 20 to 30 pages. They are, if you're get an advance, they're smaller than ever. If you have a big platform, that helps you command a larger advance. If you get yourself on a reality show, that'll get you a book deal and a good advance. But otherwise, you might get 5 to 10,000 if you're lucky, and your royalties are going to be a percentage of the sales. On average, we're seeing around $1 per book is paid to the author. And if you're still writing the manuscript, part of your contract will negotiate how long you have to finish it. And then it should also detail how long the publisher has to get it to market. You don't want it going into their stockpile and not coming out for 3 years. And that absolutely happens. So how do you find smaller presses? This is a really easy thing to do. So go to Amazon and look for those competing books, the similar books in your genre, and take note of who is the publisher. Then go look up that publisher's website. And 9 times out of 10, you will see right on the website submission guidelines. And they're going to tell you exactly how they want you to pitch them. Because keep in mind, publishers, literary agents, they need us as much as we need them. They're looking for work that they can sell and market and make money from. So if you can show them that your book is marketable and you're going to help get it out there, you are creating a win-win situation. For literary agents, there's a number of organizations. AAR Online is one of the longtime ones. There's Publishers Marketplace, Query Tracker, Duotrope. Writers Market puts out a book every year. I am going to share these slides, so you don't have to frantically write these down, but if you have your camera and you want to take a screenshot, please do. But you can search for agents through here. Certainly, if you go to writers' conferences, that's a great place to meet agents. I had my own literary agent several years back. I met her at a conference, and she didn't take me on for 2 more years. It was very early in my career. And she said, nobody knows who you are, right? Go build an audience. And I did that. And I went back to her and she signed me. So keep those contacts and don't be afraid to reach out when you've made some progress. So a quick case study for you. Melinda Emerson is a small business consultant. And years ago, when Twitter was new, she started hosting what she called Small Biz Chat. So every week she would have a business owner or a business expert on, and they would have an hour-long conversation on Twitter. And this grew to be so popular that she landed corporate sponsors. She had all kinds of things happening. And then a publisher came to her and said, hey, have you written a book? We'd like to publish it. So that's how she got her first book deal, is the publisher came to her because she was building a platform. And that is exactly what's happening today. Publishers, literary agents are looking for those with influence online. So they're looking for podcasters, they're looking for people with large followings on social media channels. And so if you're that, or you have a good YouTube channel, they could come and find you. This is Bill Ty, and he is a retired firefighter. And he thought in his retirement, he would create a hobby of writing wildland firefighting manuals. It's his specialty, and he knew he could make a difference. And so he wrote these manuals and started selling them, and they took off. It turned into a six-figure business, an unexpected business. He established his own publishing company, 100% self-published. And for years, publishers were reaching out saying, we want to acquire the rights. We want to acquire the rights. And he kept saying, not yet. I'm having too much fun. And he continued doing this for a number of years. And finally, in the last year or so, he agreed to sell the rights and said, okay, my wife would really like me to actually retire. So these things are possible, especially with niche books. It's a lot easier to stand out in a crowded field when you can really corner a niche. All right, let's go through self-publishing steps. There are a lot of them. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because, again, you're going to get the slides, and I want to make sure we leave lots of time for Q&A. But number one, first thing you should do is register your manuscript at copyright.gov before you start sharing it with anybody. Once you have a complete manuscript, go to copyright.gov. I think it's $35, and you can upload it, and that puts copyright protection on your work from the moment that you register it. So very important before you start putting your manuscript out in the world. Now, your steps. If you're going to do true self-publishing, you're going to create a self-publishing brand. You want to create a publishing company name. You're going to need to manage all the elements, all the hires, the cover design, the interior typesetting, the multiple rounds of editing. You're going to set up distribution. You're going to research printers. It's a lot of work. But if you're looking for a publishing company name, make sure you check and Google it, that it doesn't already exist. And most importantly, check the trademarks database if you're in the US. I believe it's, if you search trademark gov, it will come up. Make sure nobody has trademarked that name, and you'll want to have a logo created. Other business considerations. When you're establishing a publishing company, you are creating a business. So you probably need to get a business license with your county or your state. It's different no matter wherever you live. You may need a resale license that requires that you collect sales tax. If you're giving medical advice or anything like that, sometimes publishers' liability insurance makes sense. You're going to need to keep track of your bookkeeping, your taxes. You're going to need to decide if you want to be a sole proprietor, an S Corp, or an LLC. That's a huge sticky topic I'm not going to get into, but that's a good question for a qualified accountant or attorney to answer for you. You're also going to need to register ISBNs, pick your BISAC codes, and register with the Library of Congress. And then your steps are going to be multiple rounds of editing. Every manuscript should go through multiple rounds of editing, and there are different levels of editing. Developmental editing is for writers who want an editor to come in and kind of perform surgery on your manuscript. You want it to be reworked and you're just not confident that it flows properly. You would invest in a developmental edit. Those are typically the most expensive levels of editing. Next is copy edit. I believe we all need to be copy edited. That's a line by line review of your manuscript. And they're looking for things like, this is confusing, you need to clarify. You mentioned this in a previous chapter. And they're also looking for glaring mistakes, but generally they're looking for that flow and the consistency and making sure that it makes sense. So copy editing is really important. And then finally is proofreading. And I personally put my own books through multiple rounds of proofreading because editing is a human function. And it's amazing how many eyeballs you can put on a 50,000 word manuscript and still find typos. And a few typos are forgivable, but we don't want dozens of them, right? So editing is one of the most expensive parts of the publishing process because it is a human function. It is labor intensive. So plan for that. And then there's cover design, the interior typesetting or layout of your book. Some books should have an index. Certainly, if you're writing a medical book or a science book, they need to be indexed after they've been typeset. You need an ebook formatter, and audiobooks are the fastest growing segment of the publishing industry right now. So many of us should be producing an audiobook as well. So some steps, you're going to write jacket copy and set your price. You're going to go out and hire the contractors. You're going to pick a printer. You're going to set up distribution. You're going to set up your audiobook. Most self-published authors today are printing on demand. And the difference here is print on demand means that you can print one copy at a time, where 15 years ago, we had to order a pallet of books and store them in our garage. It was awful and it was very expensive. And print on demand gives you the ability to make changes to your book. It costs a little bit more per copy. You'd certainly get better pricing with large volume printing, but the benefits often outweigh that because you can make changes and the pricing is still reasonable enough that you can make a profit. So it's pretty easy also with print on demand to set up distribution. A lot of the companies do it automatically for you. So there's low risk. What if your book comes out and you discover a glaring error? If you had a pallet of books in your garage, you'd be really in trouble. But you can go in and make changes to a print on demand book pretty often as needed. There's also volume discounts. So if you do need a pallet of books, you will get a good price break on that. The downside of print on demand, there's not a lot of options for print sizes. So if you're trying to do something custom, you're probably going to want to go to a private printer. They also don't have a lot of paper choices. Generally, we're looking at the 55-pound standard cream or white paper. They do have glossy options. They can be very expensive, and they're definitely more expensive for color printing. If you're doing coffee table books, full color books, you're going to be better off to not go print on demand just because the pricing will be so much better with a private printer or even printing overseas. Today, our most common print on demand service providers are KDP, which is owned by Amazon, Ingram Spark, Lulu, and there's others, but I would say these are kind of the top three that we deal with. So these are DIY services. You get your own files and you upload them, and they print and distribute your books directly to Amazon and Ingram and other providers. Now, when you do this, these providers offer free ISBNs. Don't take the free ISBN because the ISBN, it's the book number that's uniquely links your book for all eternity to the publisher. And you don't want it to say Amazon Digital Services, for example, especially if you aspire to be in bookstores or have media review your book, because let me tell you, brick and mortar stores want nothing to do with anything produced by Amazon. And that also tells the reader, the media immediately that the book is self-published. So get your own ISBN. That's done at myidentifiers.com. And then you're going to set up distribution. Again, the POD providers tend to do this for you. And then for ebooks, we have Amazon Kindle, Barnes & Noble Nook, the Apple iBookstore. There's a whole bunch of them. So we recommend Draft to Digital. They are an aggregator of ebooks. They put them out to all of the major ebook providers, plus set up your ebook on KDP directly. So KDP plus Draft to Digital covers all the major retailers. It's a lot easier to do that, and they will get you into overdrive, which means libraries have access to your book. If you decide to do an audiobook, and I recommend you probably want to consider this, you won't make a ton of money on them. Right now, Audible is the leader, although Spotify is really coming for them, and I'm excited to see what that brings. But ACX is owned by Amazon. If you go through ACX, you can publish your audiobook through them, but it's all Amazon centric. So I recommend Findaway Voices. They were just acquired by Spotify, which is, I think, exciting. We need to give Amazon some competition somewhere. And Findaway Voices will get you on Audible and the other podcast or on other audiobook directories. Mistakes I see with self-published books, skipping editing, skimping on editing is number one. Please invest in editing, work out a deal with your favorite English teacher, have multiple people read it. It's so important that the editing is done well. Otherwise, it's going to get reflected in the book reviews on Amazon and things like that. Cover design is so important. We really do judge books by their covers. So you want to invest in a cover design by someone who actually designs book covers for a living. You want to have really good sales copy that convinces your potential reader to buy the book. You want to make sure it's priced properly for your industry, and you want to make sure it's generally available where your buyers are looking for it. So as you can see, that's a lot of steps for self-publishing. And I mean, I just went through that in 10 minutes. That's like a 10-hour conversation. But this is why so many nonfiction authors are turning to hybrid publishing, because they do all that heavy lifting for you. So if this is something you want to do, it is an investment, generally 10,000 and up. Make sure you're Googling any provider you're considering and do your research. I know you're all going to ask me, who do I recommend? I'm going to avoid making that a proclamation today, but I'm going to say, if you're on the live call and you want to share in the chat any providers that you've worked with and that have worked well or have issues with, please feel free to be honest and share that, because you have that as an option. As you're looking at hybrid publishing firms, here's a great way to vet them. Go to Google and search the name plus the word scam. Search their name plus reviews. Search their name plus lawsuit. This will reveal a lot of issues if the provider you're considering has problems. Okay, so make sure you do that. And then here are questions you're going to ask when you're considering hiring one of these providers. How long have you been in business? You want them to have been around a while. If they've only been around a year or two, if they came personally recommended, that's great. But I always worry about that. You want somebody with a company with some longevity that isn't going to go anywhere. Ask them about their vetting process. How do they select manuscripts? What are all the pricing or all the costs? Get a complete breakdown of the costs. Who sets the retail price? Do you have input on that? And look at the retail prices of some of the books they've published to make sure that they're reasonably priced. How much will it cost you to buy your own books? A lot of these unscrupulous firms are charging authors so much money. They're making money off the authors buying their own books. So if you have a 150-page paperback, you should not be paying $10 a copy to buy your own book from a hybrid press. It should cost you $4 or $5. Do I maintain my rights? What are the contract terms? Is it cancelable? Send me a sample contract. Where are your employees located? This one really worries me. A lot of these companies subcontract to providers overseas. While I don't think there's anything wrong with hiring workers overseas, what you don't want to do is give your manuscript to anyone overseas, because you lose all control of the copyright protection for your work. So ask them if their employees are located in the country where you live. Who do I call for help? Are you calling a call center? Do you have a dedicated project manager? How long will it take to get my book released? I would say within a few months at most is typical. Where will my books be distributed? Where will my ebooks be distributed? How are royalties calculated? When are they paid? How much am I earning per book? So again, I'll share these slides so you have all those questions. And lastly, your option is to bypass hybrid publishing and hire a book coach to maybe help you shepherd through the process of self-publishing your book. We do maintain a list of coaches at nonfictionauthorsAssociation.com under recommended resources. I know this is a big, hairy link, but if you want to see coaches, we do have some there under recommended resources. So that's certainly going to be a lot less expensive than hiring a hybrid press. But keep in mind, the hybrid press also brings all the service providers, right? They are bringing the cover designers, the editors, the typesetters. So you're still going to spend money on producing your book. And oftentimes the hybrid press is in line with that. Self-publishing case study. This is Mark Paul. He wrote a memoir called The Greatest Gambling Story Ever Told. And he has no platform, no social media presence, none of it. And it's a memoir about back in the 80s, he bet on a horse, a filly, to win the Kentucky Derby. It was a long shot bet. She ends up winning. He has to go collect his prize from the Mexican drug cartel. So it's a really great memoir. He hired great editors. It reads like a novel. And he told me from the beginning, I'm going all in on Amazon ads. He did that. He has now sold over 55,000 copies of a self-published memoir. I will say this is not typical. Don't get your hopes up, but it is possible. This is Mr. Gordon Getty. If you're familiar with him, he's a music composer. He's heir to the J. Paul Getty, the oil tycoon. And he writes prose and libretti, and he didn't want to give up control over his own creative work. So he elected to hire a hybrid publisher to help him produce the book. All right, so how are you going to choose your publishing path? If you want bookstore distribution, you really have a dream of being traditionally published, and especially if you have a platform, traditional publishing may be your best bet. And look, I get it. I really wanted to be traditionally published. Of course, this was 16 something years ago, and maybe, oh my gosh, 20 years ago almost now. But I wanted that. I wanted that credibility, and I completely understand if that's what you want. So that is an option. If you don't have a big platform and you still want to be traditionally published, look at those traditional small and mid-size publishers. If you have a limited budget and you're all about DIY, go the self-publishing route. It's absolutely doable. And if you have a budget and you're not a DIY person, I am not a DIY details person, you can hire a reputable firm to help produce your book. And ultimately, you just want to choose the path that meets your needs, your goals, and your budget. And that's different for everyone. So I encourage you to think those things through. I would love to take your questions live. So for those of you live, please put your questions in the Q&A box, not the chat, because I can't sort through the chat, but the Q&A box. I am going to take your questions, but I would like to quickly just share with you, if you're new to our organization, I am CEO and founder of the Nonfiction Authors Association. We help nonfiction authors. We're the only association tailored specifically to nonfiction writers, and we provide just a ton of value for our members. I honestly don't know of another association that provides as much educational content as we do, from templates and checklists. We have legal agreement templates. We share media leads every Friday. You get access to our recordings of past webinars and podcasts. We have multiple monthly group meetings through Zoom. We have a members only Facebook group. We allow members to share announcements about their books. We put them on our blog and on our social media. And our members get discounts off our year-round Nonfiction Book Awards program and our annual Nonfiction Writers Conference. And we also have great discount programs with a lot of our partners. The Nonfiction Writers Conference, we've been running this since 2010, entirely online. And 2010 was before people were doing online events. We were actually dialing into conference lines and listening to live speakers. But today, of course, we do these live on Zoom. We've had Cheryl Strayed, Julia Cameron, Gretchen Rubin, Don Miguel Ruiz. We've had some phenomenal speakers, and that happens every May. We also have online courses. We have a book publishing master course, marketing master course, publicity master course, and these all have optional certifications. So if you're providing services in the publishing industry, I encourage you to check those out because we are connecting our certified providers. They're getting listed in our recommended resources and getting business as a result. Next week, August 29th, I have my second year of the professional speaking course for authors is launching. It's a 3-week course. It is so fun. It is jam-packed with value. If you're interested in breaking into speaking, please consider joining us. You can find it on the sidebar at nonfictionauthorsAssociation.com. You can also find it under courses, under upcoming events. It's all there. So I wanted to say, if you decide to register for the course today, any of our courses or annual membership in the association today only, we will send you a copy of my latest book, the Nonfiction Book Marketing and Launch Plan. It's actually not spiral. It is perfect bound. It is well over 200 pages, and it will help you get ready for your book marketing. So if you're in the US, we will mail you a physical copy of the book for free. And if you're international, we will send you the digital copy of the book. But you could also just go to Amazon and buy it. But we'd love to give that to you if you register for a class or for annual membership, actually by 8/26. And if you do that, you need to send an email to help@nonfictionauthorsAssociation.com with the subject line webinar bonus and put your mailing address in the email body, and we will send that out to you within a week. So if you'd like to do that, check us out, nonfictionauthorsAssociation.com/join, or you can find our courses under the main website. I know that link is big and long and hairy. All right, are we ready to take some questions? I am going to stop sharing now and let's do this Q&A box. Okay, if you have a question, please pop it in a Q&A. Anne says, what about libraries who also buy books? And I'm not sure what you mean by that, but libraries certainly buy books. It's a great route for authors. They will buy self-published books. They care very little about that these days, as long as they're well produced. How many people do you need to have following you? So that is going to depend on the niche that you're serving. So for example, let's say your book is about living with a dairy allergy. That's a pretty niche topic. And maybe you have 5,000 followers on social media, and that's enough to impress a publisher. But if you're writing about business leadership, a big, broad, competitive topic, they're going to want you to have 20, 30,000 followers. So it really is going to depend on your niche. Maureen, can you obtain a copyright before you finish your book? No, I wouldn't register it before, Maureen. You really want to do it at least on the draft before it gets edited, and then you can always update it. But putting a copyright statement on your book, just copyright date by your name, is a sufficient amount of coverage. But if you ever had to pursue legal action, you want to make sure it's registered at copyright.gov. And I think I explained difference between copy editing and proofreading. Copy editing, the editor is looking for inconsistencies in the manuscript. They're going to point out, this is confusing. Can you clarify? You've mentioned this previously. Those types of notes are going to come back to you so you can correct them. They are also looking at the grammar and things like that, but not as closely as a proofread, which is focused on grammar, punctuation, and spelling only. Tracy says, my understanding of proofreading occurs after the book is designed. That a proofread should occur before and after the book is designed, quite frankly, Tracy. But you definitely want to do a proofread before the book is typeset, because making changes to a typeset manuscript, a typeset file is tedious, and it's better to do that before you send that to your typesetter. Do traditional publishers still assign editors to authors, especially first-timers? Yes, Catherine, generally they do. I would still say, if you want to put your best foot forward, at the very minimum, get a proofreader on that manuscript. And can you print on demand hardback books, or is this only an option? Yes. And hardcover books and dust jackets are available under print on demand. Pat, funky typesetting. What do you feel about sans serif fonts for nonfiction? Actually, Pat, that's the industry standard is serif style fonts for books. They are easier on the eye. And if you put your book in a font other than a serif style font, Times New Roman, a Cambria, those are kind of the standard. If you go with an Arial style font, for example, that totally goes against publishing industry standards and can kind of tell people that the book is self-published. So I don't advise that. Your subheadings and things like that can be in a rounded font like an Arial or a Calibri, but your main text should be in a serif style font. What is the latest on Amazon and KDP problems? Read a lot about books being pulled, bad printing jobs, etc. Pat, I'm gonna give you my honest opinion. I don't love KDP. I think that we're kind of forced to use it because Amazon, quite frankly, has some monopolistic business practices, and they're forcing authors to print through them. And they're really being hard on the third-party print-on-demand services like Ingram Spark and Lulu and Drafted Digital. We have less control going through those outlets, and Amazon is taking books out of stock and playing all kinds of games. So it's a problem. If you go directly through KDP, the quality is okay. It's not great. There's zero quality control there. And you're dealing with a call center. You're dealing with college students that are just there to answer questions. There's no experience behind it. So I just don't love it, but I think we're kind of forced to use it if you want your book to be on Amazon. When you do hybrid presses, are you still the publisher? And generally, no, the hybrid press would be your publisher, which is another reason why you want to choose one that's reputable. Donna, if you're looking for the fastest and easiest way to scale customer onboarding enablement, do the following. Oh, is this for Amazon? Dive deeper. I'm not sure what that's all about there, Donna. Joseph, I need beta readers for each nonfiction chapter as finished. How do I protect copyright? Joseph, put a copyright statement just in the footer of the manuscript. Do certain publishers prefer or demand that the author use this particular editor? Traditional publishers are going to come with their own editors. Certainly, hybrid presses may work with you on that. If you have an editor you really like that's experienced, they may let you do it that way. They may force you to use their editors. It's hard to say. My book is a memoir. It's based on my successful play, which I performed across the US and Ireland. This winter, Detroit PBS will be broadcasting a recorded performance and sponsoring a live show. How cool. I thought I had a niche market, but I have been pleasantly surprised at the broad reach and interest. It's about my parents' immigration from Dublin to Detroit and my role as my mom's caregiver. Did I say it is very funny and uplifting? My question is labeling my niche. Any suggestions? So generally with a memoir, the niche is based on a theme within that memoir. So immigrant parents, that's a great niche. And anyone who's immigrated to the United States, especially in today's climate, I think you can uplift them and bring them together. That would be a great niche for you. Right. Beyond that, we'd have to talk that through at a much deeper level, but we want to find a thread in a memoir. And for example, if a memoir is about going through a divorce and coming out triumphant, then it would be people, maybe it's women going through divorce in their 40s or something like that. So the narrower, the better, in my opinion. Steve says, I'm doing a book on PR with some great tips mixed with some awesome stories about my career working on crazy campaigns. Are 30,000 words enough for this type of book, or do I need to push it to 50,000? Pushing to 50 will be a challenge. Speaking to people, I think there's a good niche for this type of book that PR pros will find easy to understand and enjoy the stories and case histories. So, Steve, the good news is shorter books are on trend right now. I definitely do not recommend writing or trying to stretch a book's word count just to make it look bigger. So I would say it's generally enough, and you might put somewhere in the description or even in the title a short guide to PR stories or something like that. So people expect that it's going to be short because you might see that reflected in reviews. But yeah, short books are on trend. I think you can certainly do a 30,000 word book. Tracy, do you distinguish between book coaches that simply help you conceptualize and write versus book coaches that help you through the publishing process? Some of them do both, right, Tracy? So there's all kinds of book coaches. There's book marketing coaches, book publishing, book shepherds, book writing. So they should be distinguishing themselves, is the point there. How should I protect copyright when my book chapters appear as blog posts? Michelle, once you publish something on your own website, you own the copyright to it. And I think it's great that you are blogging while you're producing your book. The honest truth is, I think we over worry about plagiarism. Does it happen? Yes. Is it common? No. Putting it out in the world and thinking someone's going to take your work and run with it, highly unlikely. So I would say just put copyright statements on anything you share publicly, and that is sufficient for now. And then when you have the full manuscript, upload it to copyright.gov and officially register it. Mark says, I have an agent who has my book for about 6 months, but has not been able to find a traditional publisher. When I queried to find her, there was also a hybrid publisher who liked my manuscript, but I turned them down hoping for a traditional deal. Do you think I've given my agent enough time? Should I cancel my agent contract before I try to see if the hybrid publisher might still be interested? Hey, Mark, so you probably have a contract term with your agent and it might be a year. So I would look at that. You can talk to the agent. A lot of times they will say, look, I've tried. I mean, have a frank conversation. I think that's certainly worth it because your book's kind of being held hostage at this point. And I would say 6 months, if the agent says they've done their best and they permit you to move on, then move on. And hybrid publisher, remember, you're going to pay for that. So keep that in mind. But yeah, 6 months is a long time to let a book sit. Michelle says, I know smaller presses will take submissions directly from an author, but can an agent submit to them as well? Absolutely, Michelle. Yes, agents can submit to small and mid-sized presses and absolutely do. Hey, Stuart, can I suggest when they do the proofread, they should print the manuscript on paper? You'll be more likely to see mistakes. Yeah, good tip. Joseph says, I'm using a self-publishing company now. Do you have to register your manuscript at copyright.gov? Yes, Joseph, unless they're doing it on your behalf, you should still register your copyright. I print on demand, but other authors talk a lot about inventory and supply chain delays. What are they doing differently? That comes down to probably those Amazon issues if they're distributing through other third-party print-on-demand services, Ingram Spark, Draft to Digital. We're seeing a lot of issues with distribution to Amazon, unfortunately. Since hybrid is the publisher, then they usually want to retain rights. Are there really hybrids that let the author? Oh, David, yes, absolutely. In fact, if they're wanting to keep your rights, they're not a hybrid publisher. So remember, a hybrid publisher, you're paying for their services and they're vetting manuscripts. So you pay for the service and you keep your rights. If they want to keep your rights and you've paid for a service, that's not a hybrid press. That's very concerning to me. Now, conversely, a traditional small or mid-sized press, if they wanted to keep your rights, that's typical. That's what one of the things you're giving up when you sign a traditional book deal. Suzanne, how can I find out how many social media followers I need for my niche? It's really going to depend, and I'm sorry about your mother's suicide. It's really going to depend on the agent and the editor, right? I would say a minimum of 5,000 is a starting point. So I would say that at a minimum. Mental illness is a big topic, big audience. It's a great, important topic. And a lot of niche presses are interested in mental health. So the size of your platform may not matter as much if you go with one of those. Stuart says, I sent my book to a producer who wants me to turn it into a script and then option it to him for free. No, 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 Stuart. We don't do things like that for free. No, no, no. Catherine, an agent asked for my proposal twice and then disappeared even after I politely asked for a status. She's reputable. Catherine, I would say move on and don't wait on one. If she hasn't made you any kind of offer of representation, keep pitching other agents and publishers. On registering copyright.gov, what if your title is not fully determined? You're not copywriting the title and you're copywriting the work. So you can't actually copyright a title. So you could still conceivably register it. Concept of my memoir seems to be changing. Hi, Greta. What type of person should I contact to support and guide me? It was going to be about my relationship with my mother, but now I realize it must also capitalize on my relationship with my father. Greta, if you're going to make changes to the writing, you may either want to work with a writing coach or a developmental editor. And again, we have both of those listed under recommended resources. But that could also be two different books. So something to think about. Dan, but what I mean by rights to your work is if you give up, when you sign a traditional book deal, the publisher owns the rights to your work. They can change it. They can remove contents. They can change paragraphs. They can change your title. So they own the rights to your content. You have to ask them for permission to share your own content. All right. I think we did it. All the questions, we got through it. This was great questions, you all. I hope this was helpful. I am going to share the recording and the slides with you later today. And remember, if you register for a course or annual membership at the Nonfiction Authors Association before August 26th, then send an email to help@nonfictionauthorsassociation.com, and we'd love to send you a book. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really wish you all the best on your publishing journey. I'd love to see you in our community. And thanks again, everybody, for participating today. Wishing you a great day.
Thank you for attending this webinar by the Nonfiction Authors Association. Since 2010, we have helped thousands of writers learn to write, publish, and promote books that make a difference in the world. If you need support navigating the complexities of the publishing industry and want to reach your author goals faster, you can learn about membership benefits, courses, and additional resources by visiting nonfictionauthorsassociation.com.